It is currently 4:45 p.m. as you can clearly see on my screen. It is Sunday, May 26, 2024. What I want to document right now is the ongoing corroboration of evidence, which is supporting what is the federal imprisonment of the people of the state, which is the just punishment for the entity that is engaging in what is state terrorism vicariously through the people of the state as they are legally referred to. And specifically those that are providing an intolerable level of criminal facilitation. And that's what being a group stalker is. You're criminally facilitating a government system that is keeping an American citizen under surveillance in violation of their constitutional and human rights. And while that system is underway inside of what is my private space, which is capturing the inside of my bedroom down here on the bottom portion of the screen. This is the engineered light. That's also my shadow that's appearing in that engineered light. You can see me through the mirror. I'm holding my hand up and the blinds are closed in my room. And I'm doing that so that you can see the impossible light activity that's occurring. This is for purposes of group stalking me inside of my apartment, inside of the depths of my apartment. And it's appearing above my head. And as I raise my hand up and I move, light activity is created, meaning my movement in that engineered light is accomplishing monitoring, which is what the demon possessed are doing while they are walking in it and driving in it. And you see this as I'm capturing that in still images for you below. Pay attention to her shadow that's on her, what would be her left side. And then you're looking at her shadow that's on her right side as she's walking in engineered light. Light that is occurring again on the sidewalk because the entity would like to suggest that sunlight that is necessarily a product of remaining over Alvarado Gardens. That is the sun is the only way that sunlight is created. Sunlight is a product of the sun that is present over this specific property, over in alignment with my location at the specific property, which in and of itself is speaking to the phenomenon. It's called stalking with engineered light, stalking with the light source, and it's present for the duration of the day. And so this is capturing what is criminal conduct. And these are the people that say all 59 units are filled with third-party group stalkers who are systematically engaged in the pattern of conduct. And that's exactly what I'm pointing out to you in this documentation. You just saw what is group stalking, while a demon, that's also the ability to know that person's condition. That's also relevant to her and the rest of the people of the state that live around Alvarado Gardens who are going to federal prison. This entire property is engaged in 24-hour surveillance with the entity that is group stalking by helicopter. And this is also what I'm capturing as you see above. LAPD engaging in what is ongoing demonic pacing. And that's when the entity is literally flying over me in a helicopter repeatedly so, and also doing so with regard to, and at the same time that I engage in any new conduct, any physical movement and or operation of my communication device, particularly, and this is relevant to the fact that these are indeed the demon possessed, as I engage in a Bible study, watching biblical teachings, the demon possessed that are inherently hostile to the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ, to scripture, literally to even exposure of the criminal conduct that the demons are engaged in, as I reference them as they are with regard to the spiritual truth that this is indeed demonic activity and these are the demon possessed that are engaging in criminal conduct. And these demons make up the entirety of the Los Angeles Police Department. And it's also revealing to the world that Dominic Choi is a demon possessed individual. And that's why this state system that is demonic activity is underway on his watch, which he is not ignorant of, nor can he reasonably contend that he's ignorant of this mass amount of time in this region over my apartment, around my apartment, in a helicopter, which is requiring resources and time and expenditures of funds. You are under no circumstances reasonably contending that you're ignorant, nor will it even be considered if you want to entertain the notion. But I want to be clear, you do not reasonably contend ignorance when you have a pattern of predecessors that are multiple police departments engaging in the same stalking conduct. And it's not just the fact that they're stalking in helicopters, it's the fact that they are stalking in helicopters in a specific environment where you're looking at this sort of engineered light on the ground. Sunlight does not hit a building and create what is reflections of the object that it is hitting, appearing. Not only you see this light activity that appears on building 1818, which is this building right here that she's walking next to. You've seen the shape of the windows appearing on that building. You've seen the shape of those windows that she's walking in right now on the tree outside. And now you're seeing it on the sidewalk. You're looking at, in other words, this engineered light's just appearing all over the place at multiple angles at different times of the day. You know what that is? Maintaining engineered light. And this is a demon who is group stalking, and this demon is engaging in what is lying in wait conduct. The entity that's monitoring me inside of my private space, all right, which you are aware of because of the maintenance of that engineered environment by virtue of impossible light that's never occurring through what are closed blinds in an environment where the sun is never going to be present from morning until evening. That is the ongoing evidence, direct evidence with regard to state surveillance of a demonic nature and of a very hovering character with regard to specific knowledge of any and everything that the target individual is doing. And not only is this engineered light that this demon is walking in, this is a third party, and and this is criminal conduct that is done on behalf and in concert with the people of the state that live around at Alvarado Gardens, who are engaging in what is state terrorism with the LAPD, who are remaining present in helicopters and doing so on an ongoing basis and picking up that demonic terrorism with a helicopter. That's elements of monitoring that they're engaging in. They're crossing path, just like this demon is crossing path on the ground. They're creating audible activity, amplified helicopter activity, in the same way that this entity is monitoring. The audible activity inside of my space is not only occurring outside, well, it's amplified around me, but also the use of my living inside. As I use the television, it's noise. As I speak and document, it's noise. And the elements of monitoring are present. And this is a demon that's engaged in all elements and acting as an entity, not an individual. And this is also what is in every way demonic. All of the elements are present, including what is highlighting state terrorism that this entity is engaging in on behalf of the entity, including Lucy Santos, who's going to federal prison for this documentation of malice and impunity, done in concert with the entity that's maintaining what is 24-hour criminal surveillance and stalking and helicopters. And as I'm documenting this light activity that's on the ground, this is the engineered light that's on my ceiling. And so I want you to pay attention. The shadow is moving from one side of the body to the other, while this is called crossing path, monitoring while keeping their back to you, not having to address you, but keeping you under very close surveillance, literally engaging what is lying in wait conduct until the moment while the entity knows that I'm grabbing my communication device, coming toward the window, maintaining surveillance at all times. And for purposes of this very activity creation, they do the same things, lying in wait in their vehicles to engage in what is then driving into the parking lot or driving out of the parking lot, which is achieving the same elements of monitoring: light activity, relevant positioning, while audible activity is always maintained as present. You are looking at the shadow that's vacillating from the sides of this person. This is a demon that's engaging in terrorism with the entity. The LAPD relies on this criminal cooperative conduct. They're engaging in what is monitoring of the elements of monitoring that are occurring together: light activity and relevant positioning. This is group stalking, as I'm capturing it while I'm inside of my bedroom, which is capturing the sex offense, the perpetual sex offense. This is engineered light that's then occurring inside at a downward trajectory on my bedroom wall. And I'm capturing this at what is 4:01 p.m. You're looking at what is shadow activity inside of this light. That's because the shadow of trees that are at a distance are appearing on the surface that the engineered light is hitting. So that's the shadow of the trees that are touching the window and appearing in that shape of that window that's appearing on my wall at downward trajectory. This is magnification of light. All right. And then the shadow of the tree is appearing in that. That's not sunlight, nor is the shadow of something that is outside going to appear inside, unless that tree was like above my window, for example, and the sun that's above would be creating what is the shadow as it's appearing on the ground, but it's not going to appear on my wall inside of my bedroom. That's the same pattern with regard to the engineer light. And also, this is engineer light as well. It's just in a different color. Do not be deceived by the concentrated method and the lighter hue. All of this is impossible. You see the trajectory of the engineer light. In addition, the entity tries to draw a contrast. Oh, there's no light there. This is the only light. And you've seen that on an ongoing basis. The same engineer light that this demon is walking in outside, that's occurring on my bedroom wall, is also occurring above my head, while the light source is, again, supposedly the sun that's above us would not engage in what is aiming horizontally at a downward trajectory on a bedroom wall, creating the shadows of the trees that are outside in that light. And then also appearing above my head on the ceiling, creating a different pattern, by the way. It's creating the pattern of the blinds. This is speaking to what is demonic. And this is the engineered light, which is impossible light activity. This is literally a demon that's walking in impossible light. You are under the illusion that that's the sun and that's sunlight. This is walking in engineered light. And so is this. As they're walking in the squares, it's equally engineered light. All of this is an engineered environment. And that's what I'm revealing as I show you a consistent pattern of stalking in the environment. So I don't know why this picture is up here, but I'm going to close it right now. Hold on one second. The entity is engaging in what is, hold on one second. Here you go. The entity is engaging in what is the maintenance of a specific environment. And doing so, I want to be clear, while I'm documenting the people of the state, this is the act of terrorism that I'm going to speak to. Not only is the engineer light appearing above my head, and it remains right now at what is, again, we just saw 4:54 p.m. The entity is maintaining engineered light on my ceiling, and it's currently 4:54. I captured these images at 4:33 p.m. You saw, as I pointed out to you yesterday, while the entity engages in the same, this is nothing other than a method of maintaining light activity inside of the private space. It is also the demon possessed. The public entity is literally providing an admission so that the world understands what demonic activity looks like, where demonic activity is occurring, okay, with regard to identifying it in the environment, which is relevant to group stalking, which is serving for a prosecution of a government. And the government is doing it in concert with the people of the state. This is the prosecution of Lucy Santos, of Kun Kang, the demon-possessed group stalkers of apartment 1818 North Alvarado Street, apartment number 2, who are going to be deported upon their federal prosecution, who were driving in the Jeep, and I believe this is the same demon who they engage in what are these futile acts. This is relevant for the public safety concern. As they are documented, they engage in what are the futile acts of retaliation. That demon that represents the government, that's a threat to your life and your safety and your overall well-being, will wait for an opportunity to target you again. Okay? And it is to the demise of the entire state. Not just this demon is group stalking. This is the state that is stalking you in plain sight. Okay, all of the environment is a threat to your safety, a threat to your life, while the entity is group stalking directly. This is what LAPD, this is the evidence that the LAPD provides. This is who this third-party group stalker is acting in concert with. And you know that because of the unnatural environment that's surrounding me. It surrounds. This is a communication of a threat, and this is the pattern of the demon possessed, which is revealing the public safety concern in this country. This population that's engaging in what is state surveillance, a violation of your constitutional and human rights, they engage in the conduct of a psychopath. And you're understanding what is a population of psychopaths, ticking time bombs, who do not in any way show any regard for the rights, for the privacy, for the well-being, for the safety, for the regard of another person's feelings, while you're violating them and stalking them, keeping them under surveillance and invading their privacy. And then when they're aware of it, which is you know that because you're federally stalking as well, and you engage in a pattern indicating your real-time knowledge, that's also the ability to deduce that based on the very criminal conduct, they engage in more of it. Okay, so these are the third parties that I documented this morning. Group stalking while you saw the light source through the windshield of these group stalkers' vehicles. Okay, that's what you saw earlier today. And the entity is engaging in what is the maintenance of the specific environment. This is earlier yesterday. The entity is engaging in a specific environment, and I'm going to show you that because this is in every regard showing you the impossible light activity, not only that you see on my ceiling, but this light source that's appearing outside of my bedroom window is exactly what was over these same demons that are lying in wait, waiting to cross path again, because this is how sexually motivated, psychopathic group stalkers that are demon possessed, okay? That's what creates that personality defect. That's what creates that threat to the public while they are of that condition. And that's why it's relevant. And that's why I'm going through all those adjectives, okay? Which is relevant to a group stalker. The entity is keeping this light source over through the, which you can see through the windshield of this third-party group stalker that's operating the vehicle. And this is captured at 1 p.m. And you will see the light source that's directly over my apartment building. And you'll see it through the windshield. And this is at 1 o'clock. It's 4:58 going on 5 p.m. The entity maintains the light source, as I showed you, the engineer light that remains inside of my apartment and a different color, as though the sun is still setting in alignment to me at any location and at any time ever that would create light activity in that manner on my bedroom wall. This is the pattern of conduct. In concert with demons such as this one, 8B. Okay, that's the light source. You can see through that's the light source that's directly over my apartment, and you can see it through the windshield of this demon-possessed group stalker who is engaging in what is strategic crossing of path conduct. This is maintaining presence and alignment to engage in activity creation. You can see the light source through the windshield of that vehicle. This is captured again at what is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The entity is maintaining this light source. This is the same location 3 hours later. That's not the sun. In addition to that, you have a body. That's just one way of analyzing. And you know, under all circumstances, never is the sunlight going to sunlight the product of this or that. None of this is sunlight. This is an ongoing admission. And this is what is so futile about the corruption that's being exposed about the LAPD and Dominic Choi. And for example, Lucy Santos, who represents the entire property at Alvarado Gardens, the workforce of speaker companies, they're going to federal prison. This is an admission against all of them while you're looking at this. And this is the futility. There is no point in trying to duck and dodge the camera when I'm capturing them group stalking in a helicopter. And then you have the equally probative evidence that you're a demon-possessed group stalker, because that's exactly how this light activity is going to work in federal court. It's equally probative. The entity is engaging in what is an ongoing admission against the LAPD, who are stalking. The entity is providing an ongoing admission against the people of the state, who are stalking. All of this population on the hillside, they're stalking in the path, and they will be prosecuted by and easily identified by their address. This is why you have the impossible occurring. This is the specific environment, and it is well documented within a pattern with regard to, this is the light activity appearing both above and below on my bed. And then the entity is maintaining that light source, and we already documented that yesterday. So let's look at the maintenance of the light source as though it's setting, still remaining. This is 6:12 p.m. Okay, the entity is maintaining a light source well after 7, as though the sun is something that would ever create sunlight underneath my bed, engaging in what is engineered light that remains hours later. This is 6:43 p.m. as I've documented. The entity maintaining a light source, group stalking in helicopter. This is earlier today, but I want to show you the light activity with regard to the time frame. The entity is maintaining the light source. Yeah, here you go. Light activity well after 6 p.m. Well after 7 is what I've documented. Okay, that's not the sun. None of this is sunlight. It is the pattern of conduct of group stalking, and it is the evidence against an entire population. Silverview townhomes, all of the people of the state living on Brandon, living on Effie, living on Alvarado, living on the opposite side of Glendale Boulevard, that whole hillside, they're covered in engineered light. This is a prosecution of a population engaged in state surveillance, living off of what is Avalon, of Effie, Lobdale Place, while the entity is engaged in what is federal group stalking and monitoring where the target individual lives, which is a exceedingly violent sex offense. And while I'm looking at engineered light that's on the ceiling, it is as probative. It is as, it is as powerful as the entity group stalking in helicopters, like I continue to document. And so with regard to this environment, what I want to speak to is, again, the time in federal prison that the people of the state are going to serve. And so the entity that is group stalking you is also monitoring real-time documentation. That is the stalker that is stalking you, keeping you under surveillance, and then is engaging in what is threatening your life more, coming back and threatening you, in other words, after you have submitted court documents seeking a restraining order to keep that stalker away from you to enforce your rights. That stalker does not stop stalking you. They return to your place of residence, and they are leaving, for example, some the evidence that they're still stalking you. You're still looking at them hiding in your bushes, taking pictures, leaving recording mechanisms while they're engaged in sexual violence, watching you, keeping you under surveillance while you're disrobed in the bathroom, taking a shower, using the restroom. This is what the entity is doing while they're monitoring your documentation. And this is, again, what I document, and it's going against all of the people of the state, including Lucy Santos. She's going to federal prison for the act of violence that the entity engages in with simultaneity to my documenting it. And you will also witness that through the timestamps of my screenshots. So I am taking pictures of what is the impossible light activity, and I'm also reminding you about what the entity is doing, heavily stalking in helicopters. And the people of the state are engaged in that as well. It's called amplified audible activity, including that which is occurring with simultaneity to my physical movement and my documentation efforts. So while I'm inside of my private space, and the entity is maintaining engineered light in an impossible manner and a sun as though it would be present for 12 hours in the day. Prima facie of group stalking. Prima facie group stalking on its face. The entity is engaging in what is then communicating a threat by continuously engaging in the elements of monitoring group stalking with simultaneity to your documentary efforts, which is relevant to the federal stalking Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2. That course of conduct on the venue of the internet via communication devices, which is serving for comprehensive surveillance, which is why the entire department, the LAPD and Dominic Choi, shall be removed from their positions. And those engaged in the criminal act of terrorism, stalking in helicopters, are going to federal prison. All right, so the entity is going to federal prison that lives at the crime scene, Alvarado Gardens. And while at the same time at 4:34 p.m., which you can see as I'm capturing images at 4:36, I capture screen images at 4:33 and 50 seconds. Immediately, the entity starts sounding helicopter activity, and that's exactly what I'm noting as you see here, 4:34 p.m. And I'm referencing, see my timestamps of the screenshots, because the entity is engaging in the pattern as I document the people, while it is engaging in what is creating damning evidence against the people. The entity's psychotic pattern is to engage in more demonic activity, which is terrorism, while they're engaging in the crimes of monitoring. These are demon-possessed, third-party and state actors who exhibit hostility while they're engaging in what is group monitoring and group stalking as they are doing so with the unlawful purpose to intimidate, to threaten, all right, and to also harass you as a demon-possessed entity that is hostile because you're documenting that. And that's what's relevant to the same time with which I'm capturing screenshots of the impossible light activity and the amplified audible activity. These are demons that are in the specific environment. Everybody that lives in building 1806, for example, which is not required to engage in amplified audible activity, because the entity engages in what is the creation of amplified audible activity and methods that are not even naturally occurring. For example, a demon sitting in a truck while they are supposed to be engaged in the duty of removing those dumpster trucks and putting them in the concrete receptacles, and amplification of those dumpsters moving around, which has nothing to do with emptying that third-party universal waste doesn't even empty garbages. All they're doing is rolling them. Nonetheless, the pattern of creation of amplified audible activity of crashing dumpsters as though there's some sort of dumpster emptying going on a microphone, that's amplification, while it's occurring while that demon is sitting in the truck, not even in moving or touching the dumpster. In the same way, it is not necessary that the demons inside of building 1806 in particular, who are all going to federal prison, including, let me see, 1806 number 1, I want you to see them by name, but they represent the entity and they're all going to federal prison. Iris Carnero, you've seen this sex offender, this demon-possessed group stalker engaging in the act, molesting me with engineer light, while the light source, by the way, is nowhere over my apartment. It's directly over me while I'm on Alvarado, and never is sunlight bouncing off of concrete walls as you drive a car. That group stalker is engaging in the perpetual sex offense while I'm inside of my apartment, documenting the surveillance and the terrorism and the sex offense that I'm subject to. And the entity is engaging with simultaneity helicopter activity at 4:34 p.m., which is within the pattern of conduct and no coincidence in the specific environment. And that's why Iris Carnero and everybody else, including, who do we see at 1806 number 2? Oh yeah, you, Kim. Oh no, that's 1804. Let me see. 1806 number 2 is Me Lim. 1806 number 3, Rafael Lopez Banos. You saw group stalking with LAPD and airplanes last week while the strangers, and I put that in air quotes, came and sat down at a bench. That's called impunity. Group stalking you and keeping you under surveillance, engaging in terrorism in plain sight. That whole party's going to federal prison. And this sex offender lives in this building, and they're engaged in relevant positioning while the entity is engaging in terrorism as I document them as an entity at the specific environment where they live. Julia Alvarez Lopez. You've seen her viciousness engaging in what is psychotic group stalking with LAPD, who flew directly over my head while the light source was not outside of my bedroom window or over my front door. It was directly over me as I was walking downstairs to my leasing office after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, where I'm showing you the sunrise, by the way, outside of this living room window, which is never going to be the natural environment. Nonetheless, you are aware of that documented group stalker who is showing well-documented impunity. Joan Kim, the documented sex offender, group stalker, stalking in hallways in the apartment buildings, creating amplified audible activity while that sex offender waits for me to pull my panties down in order to engage in amplified audible activity creation, in concert with the sex offenders that are heavily group stalking by helicopter. Heavily group stalking by helicopter on an ongoing basis. This is the LAPD. This is the state that's a sex offender as well, acting in concert with Joan Kim, a documented sex offender who is living in this same building while they are monitoring the documentation of their criminal course of conduct. And the entity is engaging what is sounding helicopter activity, and doing so with real-time knowledge as I'm documenting the amplification, while a demonic entity expresses both hostility and communicates a threat to your life and safety while they are monitoring your documentation of the criminal conduct that they're engaging in, which is the behavior, by the way, and the reaction of a group of psychopaths. And everybody that lives at Alvarado Gardens is indeed going to federal prison. While the entity continues to engage in that which is to its own demise, it is both at the same time exposing demonic activity, exposing the demon-possessed, what they look like, where they're present and what they're doing, and what is relevant in this country, the criminal activity that's underway, while they're also exposing the personality defect, the mental illness that visits upon a person that suffers from demon possession, and the inability to engage in anything other than its own demise while they are obsessively engaging in the criminal elements of monitoring while monitoring documentation. And let's not leave out the demon possessed, the third-party group stalkers, the sex offenders of Silverview townhomes. All 35 units are filled with terrorists who are simultaneously and in concert acting with impunity and malice on an ongoing basis as I document that. All of this is occurring on the watch with Todd Speaker, he's going to be prosecuted for what is, again, federal facilitation of federal group stalking and monitoring. And by the way, what is inherent to group stalking in the private space, there is no quiet enjoyment. Okay, this is an inherent violation of that. This is serving for what again? The facilitation not only of his company, but his real property, and the inherent violations which I am owed as a resident where I'm subject to state terrorism at a facilitating venue. He's not operating any privacy rights, nor are any third-party group stalkers that live on this property, which is a crime scene, okay, and live around this property, which is everyone that you see under that engineer light, as I captured on still images. They're all being documented at the same time. And so I want to make sure that you see this screenshot, because this is the significance of what the entity does at 4:34 p.m. at the same time that I'm capturing the screen images. This is when the entity is sounding helicopter activity, because they are literally in real time watching what I'm documenting. And the entity continuously engages in that criminal course of conduct. And you know who's going to federal prison for it, because the state is readily handled. The federal government knows exactly what to do, and it will include what I am advocating and more. Okay, LAPD is done. Okay, that's the easy part. The people of the state are going to federal prison for that. I'm just going to put it clearly. They're going to federal prison for that. Okay, what one does, the other is doing together. This is Mary Jane and Joe. Remember, they're holding hands throughout the entirety of that criminal system. The entirety of that criminal system. And they are going to federal prison for what the state is doing, with knowledge of the fact that I'm documenting it. While I'm documenting the people, I'm documenting the state. While I'm documenting the state, I'm documenting the people. The people are the state. So I want you in your mind to erase that illusion of some separation. There is no separation. This is called vicarious criminal activity, which the people are maliciously engaging in concert with that state. And as I document the presence of this engineer light appearing both beneath my feet and above my head in an environment where the sun would never be present, by the way, at this time of day. And also I'm going to remind you about what I've already captured. This is captured at what is 3:44. I'm capturing the still images of this light source at 4 in the afternoon. The entity is maintaining a light source, okay? 4:37, you've seen the entity is maintaining this light source. I want to remind you about what the entity is doing, how ridiculous it is, because there's even more than that. The entity is maintaining a light source, as I have already documented, for example, outside of my front door at 11 o'clock in the morning. This is the light source, and I'm inside of the same apartment that I'm inside of right now. And this is why daylight savings time does not apply in federal court throughout discovery, when you are putting together all of the documentation to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that the government is keeping you under surveillance in the environment that it's doing it in, and who it's doing it in concert with, which are the people of the state. This is the light source. That's not the sun. And the light source is over this same apartment that I'm inside of right now at 11:17 in the morning, which is my ability to capture video on March 8, 2024. It's right above my apartment. I want to be clear. The entity is maintaining the light source, which is directly above me, while I still am sitting at Ramona and Hope Boulevard. This is in all manner revealing what is a state system. It's a pattern of conduct. Metro Nissan of Montclair's group stalking. They're engaged in obstruction of justice. Okay, so when I'm documenting at the same time, someone's calling my phone. That's called operation of a communication device, and that is the documentation of the people of the state. Calling my phone while I'm documenting, it's relevant to what is monitoring and federal stalking. That's what I'm speaking to. This light source, when I mentioned Ramona and Holt, that is speaking to the crime scene that you will also juxtapose to the maintenance of this light source at this time, even down to what is relevant to same time of year, because the P.O.C. provides all of that ability to analyze that, and it is serving for the informational purposes for the federal government and for any ordinary person, so that you can educate yourself and learn about what demonic activity is and where it's present, and you will learn that it's surrounding you wherever you're at, okay? And it's nothing to fill you with fear. It's to inform you and to arm you. I am showing in every regard that the kingdom of darkness is in every way defeated, literally under my feet, okay? And engaging in this ongoing criminal system is nothing other than foolish rebellion. Okay, it has nothing to do with they lost a long time ago. When you have the evidence of what is supposed to be a secret, you lost a long time ago. Okay, when you're providing evidence of what is impossible and you're so desperate that now you're just clearly engaging in impossible light activity, that which the entity intended to be a secret, but we're so far down the rabbit hole with regard to exposing the tactics of the enemy, they are engaged in what is now providing direct evidence while you're looking at impossible light activity on my ceiling in my bedroom, which is treated as an admission in federal court. But this is how desperate the entity is. This is the type of conduct that the entity tries to hide while the targeted individual would allege it, but you can't prove it. The entity is so desperate at this point, it's providing it on an ongoing, consistent basis. And you know why? Because there's a body of evidence. And what else are you going to do? Other than provide evidence against yourself? Because guess what? Engaging in the impossible 72 times or engaging in the impossible one time It's evidence the same, and it will never become the natural environment. It will never become naturally possible or feasible. It is never that which is reconcilable with regard to understanding what is the elements of criminal monitoring and the literally. You do not even need a trial. This evidence, this crime scene right here, this is grounds for what would be an automatic judgment with regard to by automatic, and I'm speaking loosely, but this is literally a prima facie case, and this is already serving for the federal prosecution. Period. Okay, so and the entity stalking, and we've already got that. We already know what the entity is doing, heavily group stalking. We have the entity engaging in the same heavy stalking in a specific environment that precedes my relocation to LA. The son is never going to be present at the same address. Excuse me for that. The son is never going to be present at the same address. I'm inside of the same apartment at 11 o'clock in the morning, and you just saw the light source that's outside of my bedroom window at the same address. This is captured at 4 in the afternoon. And you also know that the entity is maintaining this light source at an hour much later than that as I capture, and it is maintaining presence well after. Okay, this is supposedly sunlight. This is evidence suggesting that the sun is still going to be present in any location to create this sort of asininity on my bedroom wall at 7 o'clock in the evening, because that's exactly what that light activity suggests, and it's absolutely impossible. It's ridiculous. But what you are looking at, big picture, take a step back and look at the forest from the trees. You're looking at a pattern. That's literally the shadow of the tree appearing on this window right here, which is impossible light activity. It's speaking to impossible light activity. But the entity, you're recognizing a pattern, and when you're taking a look back, you're recognizing the pattern of stalking with engineer light. Okay, and this is exactly what I documented on in the morning on March 8th.
Calling right now while the entity is
okay. This is what you see here.
Okay, this is the placement of engineered light. This is my hat that I have on right here. All right, this is my hand, and this is and this is my hand over here as well. Okay, this is engineered light that fills my apartment. The reason why this is present is because I am subject to ceaseless group stalking and monitoring. Who is monitoring? Who is group stalking? Everybody that's around, okay? And that same police department that's group stalking and monitoring via helicopter. And
so first of all, the engineered light has nothing to do with the sun. Second of all, it's a distinct method. So first of all, it has nothing to do with the sun. It's a distinct method of maintaining presence all around the target individual with regard to group stalking, including monitoring with communication devices. Second of all, the light source, which is not possibly the sun, as I give you the distinct analysis providing that. Not only is, again, the light source, I'm referencing Ramona and Holt. This is third-party facilitating venue Starbucks, where the light source is over me, and that's why I'm referencing it at the time, which is relevant. That that precedes ever my relocation to Los Angeles. The sun is never going to be over my apartment, over my head, which is the pattern, but it's unnatural and it's impossible because before I ever came to LA, the entity was maintaining the light source for the same pattern from morning until evening, no matter where I went, no matter where I traveled, no matter what direction I was going, no matter what time I was traveling. And the entity engaged in this pattern. And now I'm in LA, nowhere near Ramona and Holt, even down to the same hour and minute. And yet you're looking at what is impossible. The sun over my head. No, that's not the sun. That's a light source. And this engineer light inside of my apartment on the ceiling in my living room is the direct evidence of it as well.
Okay, this is the placement of engineer.
Like I said, one being present is indicative of all of the others being present with regard to the hallmarks, with regard to the elements of monitoring. Okay, this is engineered light that's appearing on my ceiling inside of my bedroom, inside of my living room. The entity is maintaining engineered light on my ceiling inside of my bedroom. This is impossible light. This is impossible light. It is impossible that the sun will be present over the same apartment from 11 in the morning until 5, which is the time right now. Never is the sun going to create this light activity on the ceiling inside of your apartment. Never is the sun going to be present over one address for a series of hours. You're talking, I want you to see my hand. Let's count the hours together. From 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 hours. The entity is suggesting that the sun is going to be over this apartment. 5 hours to be from this part of the apartment to my bedroom, which you're still seeing it outside of my bedroom, aiming light above my head on the ceiling, and then also at a downward trajectory. And that's, again, after shooting horizontally through the windows, through closed blinds, shooting both upwards and then downwards. And then it's spreading across my bed, reaching onto the floor underneath my bed, across the carpet, up the bedroom wall. And that's well after 7 p.m. That has nothing to do with sunlight. That's the pattern of conduct of what is stalking with engineered light. And the entity is doing that in concert with the state. This is understanding what is relevant about this course of conduct. This is documentation of stalking. And the entity is providing evidence against all of the people of the state who are going to federal prison. So what the LAPD do, they provide evidence against the people. The people provide evidence against themselves because the state is already prosecuted. Okay, how are you establishing the specific environment? Because the state is stalking in that specific environment. That's already 2/3 of the puzzle. The people of the state are the last piece, and you are prosecuting that whole population that's engaged in very highly malicious criminal presence and activity creation, and they're all demons. So I want to document that threat to my life, that act of terrorism by the entity, that 4:34 p.m., maintaining a specific environment, and also engaging in what is the criminal obstruction of justice. That's how that's prosecuted. It's an obstruction, a criminal purpose intending to obstruct justice, while an American citizen has every right and shall proceed to enforce their rights, and that includes documenting the evidence of a crime committed by a government against you on the venue of the internet in order to make it public, in order to spread that information immediately, because your life remains under risk. Okay, your life remains threatened, your safety remains threatened. This is an entity engaging in assault and battery, engaging in what is kidnapping you, feigning, making up names as to a prosecution against you about your mental illness while they are monitoring you, showing their mental illness. This is an all-out emergency that the target individual faces. And then that psychopath, that sex offender, that stalker, okay, that lawless demon wants to then try to stop you or stifle your efforts to enforce your rights. Yes, it's an emergency that exists for so long as the criminal pattern of conduct remains underway. And so this is documentation and the provision of evidence against the people. And like I stated, and this is what I continue to document, and this is what I want you to look at. Hold on one second. I want you to look at this, which is exactly what I want you to be mindful of, because while I am capturing this, this is what counts. The entity is engaging in evidence. This is exactly what matters. These are the people that are going to federal prison. Lucy Santos, Kuhn Kane, Kenneth Cummings, and Chelsea Cummings, wherever they moved, they are going to the federal law. The fabulous arm of the federal government is going to reach out and touch them with the federal prosecution, and they're going to federal prison. The entity is acting via Hector Aparicio. The entity group stalking, while Silverview townhomes are engaging in the criminal elements of monitoring, they are monitoring with the people of the state living on the grounds of Alvarado Gardens who are going to federal prison. This is why you do not want to enter into a criminal conspiracy with the state as Mary Jo and Jane. What Mary Jo is doing, Jane is doing. And guess what? The people of the state make up Jane. Jane has many pieces. Jane is acting through Jane is the whole population. So Jane has many resources. Jane is engaging in what is ceaseless conduct on an ongoing basis in concert with Mary Jo. Okay? And guess what? Mary Jane, and all of the ways in which all the faces that Mary Jane has, they're going to federal prison. All of those that live at Alvarado Gardens. All the Janes that live at Alvarado Gardens, they're all going to federal prison. Every single last one of them. While the entity is engaging in what is an act of terrorism, stalking me, threatening me, trying to intimidate me while I'm documenting the people of the state at the same time as I'm capturing these still images. And again, you will look at the timestamps of my screenshots, that ongoing simultaneity. Again, it's not just the fact that you've got it's a coincidence. No, that's not enough. It's a coincidence in the specific environment, which there are no coincidences in the specific environment. It is a pattern of conduct. That's the clinical term. It is currently, by the way, 5:22 p.m. Let me just go ahead and get the light source and the light activity as you see it. Okay, light activity that's never naturally occurring, disappearing, and remaining on the bedspread. So let me clear off my bedspread so you can see this. This is magnification of light. Remember, you saw earlier, engineer light was appearing on the wall over here. The light is appearing both above my head, and then it's appearing, at the same time on a downward trajectory, and it's growing, spreading across. That's terrorism, as you document that. That inhumane, that unnatural, that growing, invasive molestation with engineer light. It's just creeping in. This is constructive presence of the state. And while the state is stalking, it's going to be prosecuted as state action because the entity requires this environment in order to keep you under surveillance, to monitor you and group stalk you in concert with the people. This is state action. Okay, the entity's stalking is directly tethered to and simultaneously occurring, pre-existing with the specific environment, and it shall be prosecuted as state action. And I'm documenting this on a day in and day out basis. And it's not just the criminal conduct by the people of the state that live at Alvarado Gardens. Let me be clear. The baristas at 706 West Holt Boulevard in Starbucks in Ontario, California, I told them when they engaged in criminal summoning that they're going to federal prison. As I remain subject to this system, no one has forgotten the criminal conduct that remains documented. It remains part of the record. This system is exactly what they were engaging in on that day, and they will be going to federal prison. Period. It's evidence against the whole entity. Okay? It is currently, this is the engineer light through closed blinds. Okay? Appearing above my head, then disappearing. You've got this wizardry with light, which is never going to occur ever. None of this is sunlight, including while the light source, which is not even the sun, is documented maintenance of presence in an entirely different region, including, by the way, the parking garage at Victoria Gardens. It's 5:24 p.m. The entity is maintaining a light source in an entirely different region. Let's take a good look at that real quick before I show you this light source outside of my window and I conclude this video. The entity is maintaining a light source at around the same time, and same time of year analysis applies, but you will understand that federal prosecution, as I've already shown, daylight savings time doesn't even apply because the light source is remaining present all day. That's a demonic environment, and it's a demonic imitation of the natural environment. And accordingly, in the unnatural environment, daylight savings time is not even real. It's an illusion. It's a fallacy. It's as illusory as you thinking that you have privacy in the United States. All right. You don't actually have it. The entity is maintaining the specific environment as I am documenting. Here we go at 5:19 p.m. Same time of year, April 23rd. Daylight saving time, same exact time. This is where the light source is at.
Nothing to do with
The entity.
like that's apparent.
Engaging all this engineer light. This is what you see on my ceiling inside of my in my living room. This is the engineer light that you see on my ceiling inside of my bedroom. This is the engineer light that you see spreading at a downward trajectory across my my bed, and then spreading across the carpet as I've documented. This is the same exact pattern. You see all these cars in this parking garage? This is state surveillance. This is a demon stalking in the parking garage right here, using their lights, stalking in the path. That's what demons do. This is very, very specific and demonic conduct. It's strategic placement, ongoing 24-hour heavy-duty hovering stalking. That's what the demon-possessed are actually doing. They would like to maintain an outward appearance as though they are unconcerned, ignorant about you. I don't even know you. These demons are paying very close attention. They're stalkers. This is state surveillance that's occurring in the state of California, and it's occurring in this country. And you're looking at a method of stalking in the path with light. And you know what's going on in the environment? All the demons around you are stalking in the path with light. You can also see that through the engineered light environment. This is impossible light activity. Shadows of the cars, light activity while the demons are on Q Avenue driving by me. That's crossing path, and the light above at the top are it's flashing light. That's impossible light activity. Light's not ricocheting. That's what you saw that demon driving a universal waste vehicle doing here in Los Angeles. Guess what that creates? That's evidence of what? A system, and it's a state system, and it is irrespective of who you think you are or what your address is or how much money you think you are or how much of an exception that you think you are. The state's engaged in massive surveillance, and that system is established as you see it and you connect all the dots of what is the environment that surrounds that targeted individual who's subject to group stalking, and your personal relationship that exists or may not exist is actually legally irrelevant with regard to a constitutionally based defense. You don't have one. It's a state system. It's the ability for the demon-possessed population to keep you under surveillance at all times.
This conduct at Fontana Lewis Library. While I'm inside of that library showing you what's the fake sun through that window of that library, well, here it is right here at Victoria Gardens, having nothing to do with what is light that's appearing.
All right, and while you're looking at me, I'm at the parking garage. That's engineered light that's appearing on the ground in an impossible manner. I'm underneath a structure inside of a parking garage. All right, this is stalking in the path, a demon sitting in their car, keeping me under surveillance, stalking in the path. Also, the entity is maintaining engineered light above at the top inside of a parking garage. This is absolutely demonic. This positioning with this light activity, you're learning this is absolutely demonic. And you have a whole population that are doing that. You know how they're doing it inside the private space? What you saw on my ceiling. That's how they're doing it inside of the private space. This is how they're stalking in the path inside of my private space. This is entirely demonic. And it is demonstrating the ongoing pattern. And this is revealing what are psychopaths that surround you. And they are engaged in heavy duty stalking. I mean, serious stalking is going on. Okay. The entity is engaging in this, and there is no sun that's going to be outside of my bedroom window, contrary to what you're going to see right now. And everybody at this property, like I said, is going to federal prison. This is the pattern of conduct. It's 5:25, like you just saw the time. 5:28, excuse me, and this is the light source. So let me open this up to make sure that you can see that very clearly. This is the light source that is under no circumstances at the parking garage of the Victoria Gardens. This is engineer light. You saw that demon earlier walking right in it. The engineer light moves all over the place. That has nothing to do with sunlight. It's rising up now. It's on the building. That has nothing to do with sunlight, nor is this even the sun. And the sun that's over my apartment at 11 o'clock in the morning, at any time of year, because daylight savings time doesn't even apply, but you can give it. The state can have it. You can have an hour. Guess what? It will never be an explanation for the maintenance of this light source. You don't have a defense. This is a government that is caught red-handed, and they're violent sex offenders and terrorists, and that's why Dominic Choi is fired. That's why. Okay? The men and women of the LAPD, they are disqualified permanently from law enforcement And their lives will be permeated because they pose a serious threat to the lives of those, especially minor children, that they have any custody of. Okay, and they will be published as group stalkers that are terrorists in the United States. They're going to be published as the group stalkers and the terrorists that they are. And I'm talking about the whole department. Okay, it is currently, by the way, 5:29 p.m. This is P.O.C.